Are celebrating after a court ordered Telkom to cancel its plans to slash thousands of jobs. But Telkom says the stay is temporary and restructuring will continue. That means more than 4,000 jobs could still be on the line in future. 3 unions, including Solidarity, went to the Labour Court to try and stop the fixed line operator from carrying out the job cuts. Telkom said last month it would offer employees voluntary severance or early retirement packages. This was the latest phase of its turnaround strategy implemented 2 years ago. But the Labour Court agrees with the unions that internal processes were not adhered to and says Telkom has to consult with workers around alternative cost-cutting measures, which means Telkom has had to withdraw its retrenchment notice. Telkom once enjoyed monopoly status, but it's taken strain since the market became more competitive and South Africans began to ditch fixed-line calls for mobile instead. Earnings dropped by a third in the year that ended in March, but for more than a year, investors have generally pushed up the Telkom share price, hoping that the restructuring plan will pay off. Well, we're now joined by Telkom executive and spokesperson Jackie O'Sullivan. Thank you for joining us, Jackie. So you've lost this court order. You have to go back to the table, but you're not going to defy the order, even though you're saying that restructuring will continue.
Yes, well, the interdict was brought on a specific basis, which is where the unions had claimed that we were not providing them with sufficient information. Now, the information that they were looking for had not clearly been identified by the unions at the outset. But the other issue that is interesting is that previously, when we have gone through the outsourcing process, that is one of the topics that's under discussion, we had actually gone to the market prior to going to organised labour. And what we'd done is we'd identified companies that we thought we could outsource to. And when we went to labour to say we'd like to outsource through a Section 197 process, we then took a lot of flack from unions, including Solidarity, who then said to us, but you've brought us a fait accompli. You've already done the work. And our argument this time was we heard the cries from Labour last time, and in this instance we were looking to have more of a conversation with organised labour about how those different options that we've put on the table will be played out, whether it's the VSP or the early retirement, whether it's outsourcing or whether it's the enterprise development options. So it was a little bit of an awkward situation because we were in a place where we found ourselves trying to hear what organised labour had fed back to us previously in January and February, only to then have that being thrown back at us as a demand for additional information. However, we will absolutely adhere to this court order. We have already withdrawn the Section 189 notice that was issued to organised labour. But the key issue is that Telkom has to change. Telkom has to turn around. Telkom, as it currently is structured, is not able to compete in the highly competitive telecoms environment in the country or in the world. And that is really the important message, is that we have to pursue this turnaround strategy and we have to deliver a better Telkom for South Africa.
I think investors are pleased with that plan to turn Telkom into this lean machine. But these workers' issues, you've alluded to it, they've come up in the past. Since Sipho Maseko has been there's been issues. Is Telkom really committed to talking to unions, to including them, because the judge certainly isn't happy that your own processes were adhered to?
You know, the restructuring forum that Telkom has developed is not required by law. The restructuring forum is where we meet with organised labour. As the judge pointed out, it is not a decision-making body. It is a body for information sharing. It is a body for consultations. That is where we have brought the business case. That is where we've brought the options of outsourcing, of enterprise supply development. And that is where we have discussed putting the options of voluntary severance packages and early retirement on the table. So we have engaged. We've had 6 sessions with Labour in the restructuring forum on this matter alone. And it is really the role of organised labour to bring the perspective of the workers and the other alternatives to those forums. They exist specifically so we can have that conversation, so we can have a dialogue. And we feel we've been very open in that process. What we've been ordered to do now is to resolve this dispute about the information, and that we're certainly going to do through the CCMA process as ordered by the judge.
So you will play open cards. The unions say they want to talk because they want to try and save jobs. Is there any possibility for jobs to be saved here, or does this have to happen, the 4,400, and that's not even looking at those outsourcing options?
The restructuring forum conversations were specifically intended to look at other options, to look at mitigations, to look at the business case, and to actually make sure that there is an understanding of the seriousness of the business challenges that we face as an organisation. But it should also be remembered that the Section 189 process is a regulated legal process that allows for remedies, that allows for those kinds of conversations as well. The Section 189 process, it doesn't stop the conversation. It in fact brings a rigour to the process that is also very important.
Just to clarify, that's where you inform the unions we're going to go ahead with retrenchments now.
It's where you inform the unions that you would like to embark on a conversation with them regarding potential changes to the business and to the business strategy that could have the result of impacting the workforce. And that could be in different manners, yes.
There are now thousands of people who are insecure. I'm sure that's bad for morale. Have they actually been identified, or are there people sitting there thinking, okay, you know, my job's here for now, but when this process opens up, I know it will be me probably going?
No, and that's an important point, is that the Section 189 notice that has been withdrawn, that was a notice that was served to organised labour only. And the reason why it's served to organised labour is that the conversations that then need to be initiated deal with that level of detail. And our argument, as I indicated at the start of our conversation, is we have not gone out to the market. We have not presupposed, because we saw that that was not well received in our engagements with unions in January and February. So we would like to be able to go into that level of detail, but that also requires us to then take that next step, to be able to understand if somebody would like to take a voluntary severance package and then potentially look at an enterprise supply development option whereby he then goes and sets up his own business, or she decides to start a whole new venture such as an internet cafe, we need to understand who those potential people are. And you can only identify those people who might be interested in taking that package or actually looking at being willing to look at an outsourcing option if you have gone through that process. So it is a complex timing operation, but you know, we started this turnaround 2 years ago, and it is a really difficult thing for our people. You know, that they're in this constant state of change, and we're very aware of that. So we certainly are trying to find a way to do this quickly and efficiently, but absolutely within the letter of the law.
Can we end with that competitive environment that you alluded to? This is the first time I've had an opportunity to speak to Telkom since the Competition Commission gave the nod or recommended yes to the Vodacom purchase of Neotel. Just how does that change things? How does that threaten Telkom or potentially shake up your business?
You know, we've always said that competition in the market is good. Competition helps the consumer. Competition is good for customers. Our concern really relates to what processes are followed to actually get to the point where that decision is made. It certainly will create a highly competitive environment for Telkom, and for that very reason, in amongst all the other competitors that we're facing in the market at the moment, besides that one specific deal, we need to be an organisation that can hold our own. And as an organisation that's 144 years old, that is cumbersome, we need to be as agile as our competitors, and at the moment we aren't. And that's really what we're trying to do, is to turn the organisation around to long-term success.
All right, thank you for your time this evening, Jackie O'Sullivan from Telkom.